Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Sportslook, the sports television program for the high plains of West Texas and eastern New Mexico. I'm your host, Doc Elder, and because last weekend the College Days Rodeo succeeded in leaving me dazed and confused, I thought I'd better bring in some experts. So we've got Albert Flinn, the head coach of Greyhound Rodeo. We've got Trent Wood, who was the highest finisher for the Greyhound men. We've also got a high school spotlight featuring Andres and Peyton. I'll finish up with an overtime, but as always, I'll start out with an Eastern recap. Greyhound football led on Saturday against Texas A&M Kingsville by a score of 10-6 late in the first half. Unfortunately, Kingsville did all the scoring from that point on in hand that the Greyhounds lost. Greyhound soccer, they were playing against Metropolitan State. Metro State pretty good. They beat the Greyhound ladies 3-1. Greyhound volleyball, they got their first win of the season in conference style, beating Texas A&M Commerce before they lost a match to UT Tyler. And for the cross-country squads, the Greyhound ladies finished third at the ACU Namadu Invitational. Greyhound guys finished fifth, but Kelvin Kipboyme, he finished second as an individual, which is pretty hard to do. Well, that has been your Eastern recap, so what we'll do is we'll clear the set and we'll bring in our first guest, Albert Flinn, right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and we welcome back to the set of Sportslook the head coach of Eastern New Mexico University Greyhound Rodeo, Coach Albert Flinn. And Coach, congratulations to you and everybody associated with what turned out to be a spectacularly successful College Days Rodeo.
It really was, excuse me, probably the largest rodeo in 56 years. 608 contestants and excellent crowd, good turnout, and good weather. It didn't rain, and we just had contestants from everywhere, and a lot of them.
Coach, now I can ask you, and I was almost afraid to ask you before because I thought I might jinx you, but were you afraid that maybe after last year where you weren't able to have the College Days Rodeo in Portales that there would be fewer contestants this year?
No, not really, because there was still a number of contestants throughout the year last year, and it's just a continuous growth. You know, each of the colleges continue to have more rodeo team members, and this is the first year that we've had the fewest number of our own, but Hobbs, New Mexico Junior College, was a co-sponsor with us, and their kids helped us put on the rodeo itself.
What helps to explain, I mean, there are some sports that clearly have fewer numbers than they did 10, 20 years ago, but rodeo continues to be a growth sport. What explains that?
I think the fact that it continues at a younger age. They go through stages that some age groups are larger than others. But the biggest change right now in the women's breakaway roping is that it has become professional and lots of money that they get to rope at. And so from 145 breakaway ropers last year to 188 this year. And it's just a growing phenomenon. They're going to have women's breakaway roping at the NFR in Las Vegas, and that's added. And as soon as they started adding that, everybody cracked out their horses, and the kids have come to it also.
In your years, and you've been associated with rodeo for quite a few years, we're not going to say exactly how long, but not your first rodeo, as the expression goes. Are the horses faster? Are they better trained now? Or is it pretty much the same quality of horse that you saw back in the 60s?
No, the quality of horses, the breeding program and the training program that they have, and it's quite a bit. You know, them horses in the roping events, they leave hard and they stop quick. And and that's what you have to have. Of course, with that many breakaway ropers, I think a 1.9 and a 2, you had to be 2.4 to get back to the short round. So it just gets quicker, and we kid them a lot about throw your rope out in front of the calf, he'll run through it, and you can be quick. But it's it's horsepower.
Well, Coach, we had a crew that was out filming some highlights of your college days rodeo, and so why don't we cue it up,
Sure.
and why don't you walk us through it?
All right, ladies, the showline's done right here.
This is Trent Wood, freshman boy. He right there, he's 9'7". He was 8'9" on his first calf, and split second and third on his first one. Won fifth here in the short go and fifth in the average. But he has a lot of potential. A young, small boy, but quick. This is Stacey Moore, a girl that went to the college finals in the barrel race. She came back 10th, and she wins fifth in this short round and fifth in the average, so she moved up quite a ways. Madeline came back in the short round in the barrel race, and horse missed that first barrel, but made a nice run, and I think she ended up about 9th. She come back 7th or 8th and stayed in that position. This is Madeline in the goat tying. Her and Stacey both were 8-4 in her first one, but this little rascal gets up. She just tied him on the toes instead of down in the legs. And this is a young Canadian girl, freshman, that didn't get to, she's actually a sophomore, but didn't get to come last year because of COVID. This is a young Canadian boy that in the first round, and he broke out to come back to the short round.
You know, I'm curious, in watching the goat tying, when did the ladies know that they need to get off the horse and it's time to go at the goat? Is it just kind of judgment, or is there a rule of thumb?
It varies muchly. It helps if they can get off closer to the goat, because the horse is going to get in there quicker than they can run. But there's several of them girls that pretty fleet of foot, get off a little early, and they're running about as fast as their horse is going because they're holding on to the side of him. So it's kind of a individual preference. Some of them want to get off early, so if the goat turns left, they can make that step to go left. If they stand straight, well, everybody knows they can get there, but they don't know what the goat's going to do when they get off, and that's the trick.
That's something else I was going to ask you about is, are they just guessing, or do they have kind of a tendency to turn one way or another?
You know, the goats have a tendency, and they get to see them go a couple times. Actually, each goat runs 6 times throughout the short rounds. So they have a shot to know what he did early when they come back to the short round. Now, the little goat that got up on Madeline, they brought that goat back to the short round, but she just didn't get him tied a little deeper on his feet. It was tying the toes instead of the legs.
Well, for people who may only watch rodeo and watch highlights like this and may never actually be at the rodeo to see what happens between the various rides, is there any grooming of the ground that takes place, or is it just whatever choppy condition it's in, that's what they have to ride on?
No, we start putting water on that arena about 4 days ahead of time. And then 2 days before the rodeo, we've got about 8 or 10 loads of water on it. And then Charles Bennett, who takes care of the grounds for us. He goes in there and chisels it really deep. On the first day of the rodeo, and then when we have slack Friday mornings, he's out there chiseling it again to get it ready, and then he grooves it back down because every morning you have to dig it back up so it'll last all through the slack, and then you have to go dig it up so to be ready for the performance that night. So it takes about an hour before each time to work the dirt.
And it's definitely a skill because you want it to have just the right consistency if you can.
Pretty much the same consistency throughout the whole 3 days. And with water and tractors, we're able to do that. It just takes a lot of water then, but we were blessed to have a water truck and didn't need the extra water. Got a little dusty around the outside, but inside was perfect.
Well, Coach, we talked about some of the individual performances and saw the highlights. How did the teams do overall?
Texas Tech's women's team just ran away with 380 points. Second and third, those teams had 90 points or 95. We had 85 points, and we were fourth. So the girls are in there fairly solid. Western Texas at Snyder won the boys' team trophy with 450 points, and West Texas A&M was right behind them with 400 points. We had a few points what Trent won, and our boys' team was seventh out of 16 teams. So it gives us a little bright outlook that knowing that we have some boys that can place. We have some team ropers and that's capable of winning. They just have to get things done.
And so Trent had the best showing for one of your male performers. Were Maddie and Shashi your best female performers?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, they're the two bright stars that we have, and they both enter 4 events, and they actually team rope together, and then they're in the barrel race goat tied in the breakaway roping, and Madeline was 2.7 in the breakaway roping, but 2.4 is what it took to come back, and then Stacey broke out to be 2.4, so they're capable of winning. They just have to put it together.
Well, obviously, the goal is to be one of the top 3 teams by the end of the spring semester, but we're still in the fall semester. What's the next rodeo on your agenda?
We go to Sul Ross University, Alpine, and we leave Thursday morning. And then the following week, we go to Vernon, Texas, and then we'll go to Canadian, Texas. That's where Frank Phillips has their college rodeo. We wait a couple of weeks, and Texas Tech is the end of October. And that's the fall run, them 5 rodeos.
I was just going to ask, is your schedule pretty much the same from year to year, or is it like, well, let's do something a little different?
No, the dates are pretty much scheduled. We start with the first one, and then Alpine and Vernon follow us, and then Clarendon changes between Frank Phillips and Clarendon WT. They rotate out. But them first 3, Vernon has to have their rodeo early part of October so they can get the facilities.
Well, Coach, congratulations. It was a great 3-day event. Kudos to you, everybody involved, and best of luck the rest of the fall semester.
Thanks, Doc. Appreciate you.
All right. Well, that is going to wrap up our first interview segment. So what we'll do is we'll clear the set and we'll cue up a high school spotlight right now.
Good evening and welcome to High School Spotlight. I'm your co-host, Andres Chavez.
And I'm Peyton Santianes. And tonight we'll be bringing you highlights from Portales Ram Volleyball against the Carlsbad Cave Women.
as well as football footage between the Rams and the St. Pius Spartans. Now let's get to those volleyball highlights. Rams start off with a strong serve from number 11, Kylie Payton.
Rams return the ball with a set from number 8, Angelina Maestas, and a spike from number 7, Emma Long.
With help from Maestas, Payton brings the heat, giving Portales another point.
Number 10, Riley Sheelings delivers a solid serve to Carlsbad, but the Cave women were ready to strike back.
Payton with the enormous end for the Rams, this time from the right side with help from Sheelings, closing the game outright, beating Carlsbad in 3 sets.
You know, Andreas, the Rams had a really impressive game against Carlsbad on Thursday.
I think they did, winning it in 3 sets, Kylie Payton leading the way with spikes, serves, and blocks. It just was really an overall game for the Rams.
Let's see if they can keep this going in football with their game against St. Pius coming up next. From the 35-yard line, number 6, Alejandro Sapien throws a dime to number 5, Dominic Esparza, for a 45-yard gain for the Spartans.
From the red zone, Sapien gives the ball to number 44, Marco Ibarra, who runs left, powering his way to a Spartans touchdown.
The dynamic duo strikes again, with Sapien rolling right, finding a wide-open Esparza for another touchdown.
Don't count out the Rams just yet. Number 5, Devin Diaz, finds wide receiver Eric Ramirez in stride for a Rams touchdown.
Backed up in the goal line, Diaz hangs left and rushes for a cool 20 yards for Portales, dodging the Spartans from all sides.
Last chance for the Rams. Diaz rolls left, looking for some magic before getting hit from behind by number 34, Hakeem McNeil. As the clock strikes midnight, the Rams would fall short to the Spartans, 21-20.
And that's all the highlights we have for you guys tonight.
But before we pass it to Doc at the desk, be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more photos, videos, and updates. And as always, I'm Andres Chavez.
And I'm Peyton Santianes, and we'll see you guys next week.
Welcome back to Sportslook. Thanks to Andres and Peyton for that high school spotlight. And now we bring to the set our second guest of the evening, Trent Wood from Greyhound Rodeo. And Trent, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Trent, first and foremost, where are you from and what was the process that got you to rodeo at Eastern?
From here, born and raised right here in Portales, and was looking to get on a rodeo program and couldn't pass up Albert. Pretty good deal he's got going here.
How long have you known him?
Him and my dad and my granddad were pretty good friends, so quite a few years since I was pretty little.
So rodeoing in your blood.
Yes, sir.
What age did you start rodeoing?
Oh, off the top of my head, maybe about 6, 7, somewhere around there.
And what was the most valuable bit of advice you ever got about going into rodeo?
No, it takes a lot of money. You lose a lot and win a little.
Well, were there other sports that interested you and rodeo gradually became your favorite, or was rodeo always your sport?
I played a little baseball and basketball in high school and junior high, but had a lot of horses and stuff around, and just kind of where the ball fell.
And who were the influences on you to help you to become the obviously good horseman that you've become?
I mean, there's a lot going rope everywhere. And my dad, my parents, everybody, and Larry Powell, a lot of people just around here that helped quite a bit.
So what were the rodeos? For people that may not be familiar, what are the junior rodeos that you competed in when you were growing up?
There's a lot of different associations, but, in all events, just any kids wherever, come and go to them.
And obviously, there are a number of different events that you could compete at. What turned out to be your favorite?
Team roping and calf roping, really. That's kind of what I stuck with.
And what was intriguing about those as opposed to the other events you could have gone into?
It's kind of what I always grew up around and what fit me the best.
Well, obviously, to be successful at calf roping, there are a couple of things. You've got to be a pretty good athlete. You've got to have a pretty good arm to be able to throw the rope, but you've also got to have a pretty good horse. And what do you look for on a horse?
Well, you need one that'll sit there and score good and respect your hand, and then go out there and do his job. But there's some old veterans that are always pretty good at it too.
And how about you? What was the process? Did you find a horse pretty quickly on that was a good one, or did you kind of try a few out before you got the one you're using now?
The one, well, I sold the one when I was a little younger, and I've owned this horse for 3 years now. And I bought him from a guy who was making the finals at the time, and he was only a practice horse, and so he was pretty good, and so I thought I'd buy him, and it just kind of worked out since.
Well, Trent, obviously you had a great showing, finished fifth in your event at the College Days Rodeo, and honestly, did you think that was a little better than you might finish, a little bit worse than you thought, or just about, yeah, that's probably what my first rodeo is going to be like?
Oh no, there's always room for improvement, but it could have went a lot better. There's a lot of bobbles that happened, and but I was very fortunate the way it worked out.
Had you ever roped against the guys that you were competing against?
Yes, sir. Oh yeah, most definitely. There's a lot of open rodeos and just big junior open ropings and stuff like that, and they all go to them.
When it comes down to it, it's you and your horse. I mean, from the time that you come out of the chute, that's pretty much where everything else shrinks off into insignificant. But up to that point, what sort of relationship do you have with Coach Flinn? What does Coach Flinn bring to the table to help you become a better rodeo performer?
Several reasons. There's a lot of practice that goes on there, and I mean that's what you want to do to get better. You practice a lot, and Eastern's not a bad school, and that was a big influence on it. It's a good school to come to and start my first year right here, and I'm right here at home, so it worked out pretty good.
Couldn't ask for much more than that.
Exactly.
What's the biggest rodeo in terms of people there in attendance that you'd ever roped at?
Probably the World Series finale in Vegas. Yes, sir.
And I didn't really do my homework. I was not aware that you had competed in that event. So, okay, well, so the limelight at Lewis Cooper Arena, you were kind of used to that.
Yes, sir.
Take us through the day of the finals. When do you get up? When do you make your way to the arena? What's your process of getting yourself physically and mentally ready for the rodeo?
Got around about 7 o'clock, and Albert told us we need to be there about at 9 when the slack started, and we sorted a little bit, some calves, and helped push some steers up, the jobs he had assigned us, and then that night we kind of went and ate lunch, and then that night we got ready and sorted some more and warmed my horse up and backed in there and run one.
Do you have a lucky pre-rodeo meal, or is it just whatever you're hungry for?
Whatever suits me the best.
And obviously things might have been different because this was a rodeo that you guys hosted, so all of you had to play roles in helping to put the rodeo on. So how is the schedule different, like when you go to Sul Ross? What is your rodeo day going to be like on a Saturday?
A lot more hanging out and socializing, really. He had us a job assigned all weekend right there, and if you weren't up or you were doing something else, so it'll be a big relief on just being able to kick back and hang out.
Trent, in some sports, you don't want to get to know the competition because they're the enemy, and there are some sports where it's like, no, you're going to be competing, but you're trying to do the best you can, and just if that person's better on a particular day, you just literally tip your hat to them. Are you more in the first camp where you don't really want to get to know your competitors, or are you like, I mean, we're all trying to do our best?
Well, I mean, outside of the arena, you're all friends with them, but whenever it's go time, it's go time. You're all in. You got the money up and everything like that, and you're there to win. So you're technically friends with them, but you see them around the world. I mean, we travel everywhere, and everybody goes everywhere. So you know them pretty well.
And you're obviously a student athlete at Eastern New Mexico University, and we've talked about the athletic part. Let's talk about the student part. you're pretty early in your career and it might change, but if you had to go on record right now, what do you think you might possibly major in?
I'm looking a little bit towards ag business, mainly a business degree, but we'll just kind of see where it leads after that.
Did you have a teacher like at the junior high or the high school that was particularly memorable?
Audrey Powell from Dora. I went to school at Dora, but Audrey Powell was a big influence on mine.
And got to ask you a question that I'm really curious about. Clearly, COVID affected everybody, but kudos to all of you. What helped you get through that period of uncertainty?
A lot of practice. There wasn't many places to go and stuff like that, but you had a lot of money because you weren't going so much. But a lot of practice can keep you going forward.
Well, Trent, speaking of going forward, we wish you the best of luck going forward, and let's hope that this year you're up in Casper, Wyoming.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Well, that is going to wrap up the interview segment of Sportslook. So what we'll do is we'll clear this out, and I'll finish up with an overtime right now. Back during my introduction, I used the phrase dazed and confused, and that could refer to two things. It could refer to a song by Led Zeppelin, or it could refer to a 1993 movie. I actually want the 1993 movie because if you remember the plot of that, there is an actor who portrays a character, Randy Pink Floyd, who's trying to make a decision whether he wants to play football his senior year of high school or not. So it definitely had a sports-related theme. But while that kid who played Randy Floyd had a pretty good career, the individual who played the character, David Wooderson, probably went on to have a little bit better career, I think we'd all say, because, of course, in his first role, the person playing David Wooderson was Matthew McConaughey. So all I can say to that is, all right, all right, all right. Well, that will wrap up an overtime, and that will wrap up an episode of Sportslook. I'd like to thank my guests, Albert Flinn and Trent Wood. I'd like to thank my floor crew, led once again by Zach. So for those aforementioned people, this is Doc Elder saying, so long.